So I just did an interview with America's dad, Bernie Sanders. I obviously had so many questions for him, and they just didn't have the time. You know, he only had like about 15 minutes or so. So we didn't have the time to get into so many other questions that I wanted to ask him. But right off the bat, I was impressed with his answers because to so many questions, his answer was just like, absolutely. And when I was crafting the questions, I was thinking, and again, go watch that before you watch this, okay? If you're on YouTube watching this, stop. Go watch the Bernie Sanders interview first that I did with him. I'll leave it in the video description box. But questions that I thought he might not be totally on board with, he was just like, oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, of course. And I was like, oh, shit. Which is good because that's America's dad. And, you know, so often he goes above and beyond and you're like, wow, he's really the guy we think he is. And he's really fighting for the things that we want him to fight for. So first impressions, I almost felt like here I thought I was presenting a bunch of slightly more difficult questions, but he still handled them incredibly smoothly and gave pretty much the right answer. I mean, there were a few where he wasn't as strong as I would want him to be, but that's just we just have a slight difference of opinion on timelines for certain things and so on and so forth. But anyway, I digress from that. Here are the questions that I wanted to ask him, but I didn't have enough time. And I just want everybody to know that these would have been asked if we had the time. So don't think like, oh, Kyle left this issue out or this issue out, and that's not cool. Because I had planned likely to ask about the thing that you're mad I didn't ask about. So I had a question planned that was, Edward Snowden revealed the NSA was unconstitutionally spying on all Americans. Julian Assange is being pursued by the Trump administration, not for anything involving the 2016 election, but for exposing U.S. war crimes. And Chelsea Manning is currently being persecuted as we speak for leaking that information to Julian Assange. Will a Bernie Sanders presidency, would you pardon or commute the sentences for these people? That was one question. I unfortunately didn't have the time to get to it. I would have been really interested in his answer there. Another question that I didn't have time to get to is, if you agree that drug addiction is a medical issue, then how can you not support decriminalizing drugs beyond marijuana? So shouldn't addicts of all substances get treatment, and shouldn't none of them be criminalized? That's another question that I wanted to ask, but unfortunately I didn't have the time to get to. Another one, which I'm really mad I missed this one, and I had to prioritize under the gun, so I just missed this one, but I shouldn't have, and it's annoying, but I didn't have that much time. But what I wanted to ask him was, in 2016, every single poll had you beating Hillary Clinton by a wider margin. You beating Trump by a wider margin than Hillary Clinton, okay? And you polled particularly well in the states that matter most in the general election, in the Rust Belt. So I think Bernie would have won. Do you think Bernie would have won? And I would have been very interested to hear his answer there. I actually think he may have been asked this once before, and his answer was yes, Bernie would have won. But I think he was slightly coy about it, where I would have tried to get him on the record like very clearly. There's a lightning round where I wanted to hit him with policies and have him give me yes, no, or maybe. He's too thoughtful for that, unfortunately, but ones I didn't get to was asking him about a direct ballot initiative law, where every time there's a presidential election, you vote on the top 3 or 5 issues affecting the American people. So like directly voting on should we legalize marijuana, directly voting on should we end the Iraq war, directly voting on all these important issues, and doing like 3 or 5 every election year, every presidential election year. I didn't get a chance to ask him about the idea of Social Security for all, so universal basic income reframed as Social Security for all. I didn't get a chance to ask him about chaining the capital gains rate to the income tax rate. I was going to throw that out there. And another one I was going to ask him about in the rapid fire section was, should we legalize, tax, and regulate sex work to get it off of the dangerous black market? And I think he's not in favor of that, but I maybe would have pressed a little bit on that. And then also, I was going to ask him about treating social media like a public utility and expanding the First Amendment. And I don't think he's ever been asked that before, and I'd be very curious to see what his response is. My guess is he would say, like, I haven't thought about that yet, I need more time to think about it, whatever, but I would have liked to throw that out there. And then also, super important but didn't get to, was I know that you don't support BDS of all of Israel, but how about BDS of just the illegal settlements? And if you're against that, how can you be against it? Because this tactic worked in apartheid South Africa. So isn't it like a moral imperative? If Palestinians can't resist with violence because that's immoral, then isn't a nonviolent approach the only way? So how can you be against that? I was going to ask that. And then finally, I was going to say, what's your specific plan on corruption and money in politics? Do you support a constitutional amendment? Do you support an executive order? Do you support some sort of public financing of elections bill, some specific bill? So I was going to get a little more in detail with that. But anyway, those are the ones that I didn't get a chance to ask, but I did get to ask a lot of good ones. And I had one, like jokey thing at the end where I asked him his opinion. I asked him LeBron James or Michael Jordan. He gave a very interesting answer there. But the other jokey ones I didn't get to are Biggie or Tupac and Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. But anyway, those are the things I didn't get to ask him that I wanted to ask him, but I did get to ask him a lot of really interesting stuff, and you will see that. It's already released by the time you're watching this. But anyway, America's Dad, Bernard Sanders. It was a great interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.